Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Erin Bennell. I'm a Senior Broadband Program Coordinator here at the Texas Broadband Development Office. Thank you all for joining the Texas BDO to the first of 4 BEAD Challenge Process webinars. Throughout this series, the BDO will provide updates and demonstrations of the various phases of the challenge process. All webinars will be recorded and posted on the BDO website to rewatch, share, and refer to as the BEAD Challenge process develops. Just a reminder that no AI readers are allowed at our meetings, so they will be removed if we do see them in the lobby. By the end of this webinar, participants should be able to know what the BEAD Challenge process is, why it's important, and how it may impact local communities. They should also be familiar with preparations for eligible entities, including pre-registration, types of challenges, evidence required, and more. And finally, participants should feel ready to take the next steps for the challenge process. Today's agenda is first going over the BEAD program as a whole, before going into the challenge process overview. Then we will look over the timeline and pre-registration process, before ending with next steps and resources and a time to answer questions. The chat is open for you to submit questions throughout the presentation, but we will take some time at the end of this presentation to answer them verbally. Before we dive into the specifics of the BEAD challenge process, let's review the terminology outlined in the BEAD Notice of Funding Opportunity published by the National Telecommunication and Information Administration, or NTIA. I'm aware that many of our participants are familiar with these definitions, but we just want to make sure everybody is using the same terminology as we discuss this process. So first, a broadband serviceable location, or a BSL, is a business or residential location in the United States at which mass market fixed broadband internet access service is or can be installed. An unserved BSL is a BSL that does not have access to internet speeds of 25 megabits per second over 3 megabits per second, or does not have access to internet at all. An underserved BSL is a BSL that has access to internet speeds of 25 megabits per second over 3 megabits per second, but does not have access to speeds of 100 over 20 megabits per second. A community anchor institution, or a CAI, is a school, library, health clinic, health center, hospital, or other medical provider, public safety entity, institution of higher education, public housing organization, or community support organization that facilitates greater use of broadband service by vulnerable populations. A little bit more information about the BEAD program. Created by the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, more commonly known as BEAD, was created to connect all unserved and underserved locations in the U.S. Texas received the largest allocation with $3.3 billion. Specific requirements of the BEAD program include 1. Developing a plan to achieve universal coverage for the state by maximizing deployment of end-to-end fiber. 2. Prioritizing projects providing broadband access to unserved, underserved locations and community anchor institutions. 3. Implement a subgrantee selection process within 1 year of the approval of the initial proposal. And 4. Focus on improving broadband affordability. With such high stakes, it is important that the BDO has the necessary information to award funding. The BEAD program is divided into 4 main stages. The first stage was the development of the 5-year action plan, which was approved in August of 2023. The 5-year action plan provided an analysis of the state of broadband to guide the BDO throughout the development of the initial proposal. 2. The second stage was the development of the initial proposal. The initial proposal itself is divided into 2 volumes. Volume 1 outlines the steps and requirements for the BEAD challenge process and was approved in April of 2024. Volume 2 outlines the subgrantee selection process and the office's plan to reach universal service. The third and fourth stages are implementing the activities outlined in the initial proposal, Volume 1 and Volume 2. So for today, we'll be focusing on the implementation of initial proposal, Volume 1. So with that, we will go into the challenge process. Before we dive into the specifics of the BEAD challenge process, let us provide some background about why this process is necessary. The Broadband Development Office uses the Federal Communication Commission's, or FCC's, National Broadband Map to gain a better understanding of the service availability in the state. Industry stakeholders provide their service data to the FCC to assist in this process. After receiving the information, the FCC allows providers, local governments, and interested parties to challenge the data to get the most accurate picture of broadband availability before it is published and available to the public. However, this process to update the national map takes about 1 year. Since the last update of the map, progress has been made to connect more locations using federal, state, local, and private funds. The Texas BDO will be implementing the BEAD challenge process to improve the map and ensure funding eligibility across the state is accurately represented. With that, let's answer a few questions about the process. First, the goal of the BEAD challenge process is to create a comprehensive and final list of eligible locations for the BEAD program. At the end of the BEAD challenge process, all locations identified as unserved and underserved will be eligible for BEAD funding. The BEAD challenge process will also assist the BDO in identifying locations that have not been labeled or have been labeled as a CAI. Second, eligible challengers include units of local government, nonprofit organizations, and service providers. Individual residents will not be able to submit an official challenge. Instead, the BDO has elected to use a resident input tool that will accept evidence and feedback from an individual that may be submitted as an official challenge by an eligible local government or nonprofit. Third, the Texas BEAD challenge process will officially begin on Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024. Eligible challengers will be able to access the portal through their account and submit evidence under the appropriate challenge type. Eligible challengers will have 14 days to submit all challenges via the portal. The final update to the portal map will occur 7 days before the start of the challenge phase on Tuesday, November 26, to provide challengers time to double check their submission before the challenge phase officially begins. Fourth, individual locations displayed on the map will be eligible for challenge. Challengers will not be able to challenge the position of a location or if a location meets the definition of a broadband serviceable location. A full list of eligible challenge types can be found in the Texas Initial Proposal, Volume 1, available on the BDO website. Eligible nonprofit and community organizations may include local communities, community action agencies, nonprofit, community-based organizations or community anchor institutions, civil rights or equity-focused organizations, unions and workers organizations, faith-based organizations, civil society and consumer-focused groups, schools and community colleges, and neighborhoods and housing associations. This is not a comprehensive list. If you have any concern that your organization is not considered an eligible challenger, please reach out to the BDO for clarification. Broadband service providers are also able to challenge and include any and all types of ISPs, including providers currently servicing locations in the state of Texas and prospective providers. Types of local governments may include the Council of Governments, local and tribal government entities, including offices charged with overseeing transportation, economic development, community development, education, information technology, health and human services, labor, and agriculture. Again, this is not a comprehensive list. If you have any concerns that your organization is not considered an eligible challenger, please reach out to the office for clarification. Now that we have gone over what the BEAD challenge is, let's get into the specifics of the timeline and pre-registration. Starting Monday, November 4th, next week, pre-registration will be open. Eligible challengers will be able to submit their information to be approved as an eligible challenger and access the portal. Challenges will not be accepted at this time, but approved entities can take the time to familiarize themselves with the portal and map. From now until December 3rd, the BDO will conduct outreach by hosting this webinar series and publishing online resources. On Tuesday, November 5th, a technical support hotline will become available Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central Time. The number will be provided on our website. The challenge phase will last 14 days. Once the 14-day window has ended, the BDO will review submissions to identify qualifying challenges. 6 weeks after the challenge phase has ended, the BDO will notify all challenged service providers and CAIs of their pending challenges. They will have 14 days to respond with evidence. This phase is known as the rebuttal phase. Once the rebuttal phase has ended, the BDO will review all evidence provided and make a final determination for each challenge. In spring of 2025, the BDO will submit its final determination to NTIA for approval. Once the BDO has received approval from NTIA, the office will publish the final map and location lists. All locations determined to be unserved and underserved will be eligible for BEAD funding. In just a short minute, we will show a walkthrough of the pre-registration form. In order to register as an eligible challenger, you must have the contact information for the person creating the account and the name and identification information of your respective organization. The link to the registration page is available at the top of the slide, and this link will also be available on the BDO website. And with that, we will start with our demonstration.
This demonstration will show how to register as an applicant for the Texas BEAD challenge process. We begin here on the landing page. You can scroll down and click Register Now. This brings us to the Texas BEAD challenge portal intro page. Here you have the option to review this information as well as supporting program documents. And when you're ready, you can go ahead and click Register. This first section is the About You section. Once you've filled in the required fields, you can go ahead and click Next. This next section is organizational information. Once you've filled in all the required fields, you can scroll to the bottom and click Finish. Once you've submitted your forms, you will receive an email thanking you for registering. Once the Texas Broadband Development Office has reviewed and accepted your application, you will receive a second email with a link to sign up for your account. It's recommended that only one person from each organization sign up for an account. And once that person's application has been accepted, they can go ahead and add as many team members to the same account as they would like. Thank you so much. This concludes the demonstration. This demonstration will
So now that we have completed our demonstration of the pre-registration, let's get into the next steps and some additional resources. First, the next step to do is register to participate in the BEAD challenge process. Even if you have no intention of submitting a challenge, an account may still be necessary for the rebuttal phase. Registration will be available until Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. For residents, more information about the resident input tool will be coming shortly. Finally, stay up to date with the BDO throughout the BEAD program. To learn more about the BDO and the BEAD challenge process, please visit the outreach page on our website. Our website will have the link to sign up for our monthly newsletter. You can add our monthly roundtable to your calendar and the link to register for the next webinar in the BEAD challenge process series. Registration for this particular webinar does not automatically register you for the next webinar. As a reminder, a recording of this webinar will be available on our website shortly, along with the approved Texas Initial Proposal, Volume 1. Thank you for your time, and we will now begin to take questions.
Erin, this is Andrea. So we have a question. First up is which version of the FCC mapping data will be used for the initial challenge map, or will it be based on something else? And if so, what?
Yes, we will be using version 4 of the broadband data collection. We are hoping that version 5 will be released in time for us to use that, but because we are unsure of the release date for version 5, we will be moving forward with version 4. If any changes come up, we will be sure to let everybody know.
Thank you, Erin. We have another question. Most states have allowed a 30 to 60-day day challenge window. Given the BDO hasn't received approval of the initial proposal volume 2, so the 365-day shot clock hasn't even begun, why the short challenge window?
Yeah, so either way, all states were given the same amount of time to complete the BEAD challenge process. And given the sheer size of the state of Texas and the anticipated amount of challenges, we wanted to give the BDO and its team enough time to properly evaluate challenges and the rebuttals and evidence that is submitted with all of it. So that is the reason for the short 14-day challenge period.
Thank you, Erin. So another question, do eligible entities need to participate in the challenge process to be eligible for the application phase?
No, you do not. You do not need to participate in the challenge process in order to be eligible for the application phase.
Okay. Next, what challenges will be prioritized? Is there a list of recommended challenges that should be considered?
There is no prioritization of individual challenges. All challenges outlined in our initial proposal, Volume 1, are eligible challenges. So we will be reviewing each challenge, no matter the challenge type, to provide a final determination on the status of that location.
Excellent. Can the CSV location files be made available sooner than 7 days prior to the start of the challenge process?
We are doing everything we can to get those CSV files and location data ready for everybody. If they are able to be published earlier, we will be sure to let you know. The 7 days is the federally required time frame. So at least you will be getting 7 days before the start of the challenge process.
Excellent. I think the next question was similar. What is the file format to use for the portal?
We are lucky enough to have one of our members of the team who is working on the challenge portal. So I will send that over to Clay.
So where a specific file format is called out, it'll be listed in the upload field. If you're working with something like location IDs, those will be a CSV, and there are instructions for the CSV each time an upload is required. If it's something evidentiary, usually a PDF or an Excel or CSV is preferred. But if there are any limitations, those will be listed in the portal itself for each upload section.
Thank you, Clayton. Will you stay on just a second? It looks like we have another formatting question. Are there any file size limitations or data caps for portal submissions? And then the next question's for Aaron.
Yes. Also, same answer there. If there are file size limitations, that's listed in the upload. There are also some instructions on how many files can be uploaded, as well as a request to zip files if it exceeds the file size limit. Um, so hopefully that answers the question.
Excellent, thank you. And then this one's for Aaron. So what is the planned service date?
The planned service date is May 30th, 2025. For those that don't know what the planned service challenge is, any location that will be connected by May 30th, 2025 without an enforceable commitment can be challenged with evidence.
Excellent. We have who is the portal vendor?
Our portal is hosted by Ready.net.
Thank you. And does the state allow bulk uploads of all location IDs, including CAIs?
Yes, we do.
Looks like these are repeat questions. What CostQuest license does the state have?
I believe we have a Tier C license, but I may need to double check.
Thank you. So you mentioned a resident input tool for providing individual information, but who would that be submitted to and when would that be available?
Yeah, the resident input tool will allow individuals not acting on behalf of a local government, nonprofit, or service provider to submit a challenge for an individual location at a time. Residents will not be able to do bulk input submissions. They will have a form that will also be available on the BDO website to fill out, as well as provide their information. This form will then be submitted into the BEAD Challenge portal for eligible nonprofits and local governments to review and then submit on their behalf. And we will also be having a webinar specifically on the resident input tool to provide more information and a demonstration.
You, Aaron, and just Greg was able to confirm that we do indeed have a Tier C license for from CostQuest. And just to clarify, the challenge process will not permit BSLs to be added or the validity of a BSL to be challenged.
That is correct.
Can we preview the portal once we register so that we can plan for evidence collection in the correct formats?
Yes, once you have been granted access by the BDO to access the portal, you will be able to play around with the portal, get familiar with the setup of the system, set the map settings to whichever is the best fitting for your eyesight, all of the above.
Excellent. When will we have access to the portal so that we can see the required file formats?
Registration will begin next week on November 4th, my apologies.
Fabulous. Do I need a Tier E license for pre-registration?
You do not. It is encouraged that you get a Tier E license in order to preview the data before submitting a challenge. So that way you can prepare all of your information and evidence before the 14-day challenge process begins.
Thank you. And it looks like we have a repeat. So just for those that may have joined a little bit later, what version of the fabric is the state using to make eligibility determinations?
We will be using version 4 of the fabric and availability data unless it is announced that version 5 is released before the challenge process. We want to make sure our vendors have enough time to process the data and get everything uploaded into the portal. So it really does depend on when that fabric data is released.
Thank you. And it looks like we have one last, oops, couple more questions now. Does the state require that for CAI to be served, it must receive service of 1 gig symmetrical?
If I remember correctly, a CAI is served if it receives 100 over 20 megabits per second. But when we are looking at projects to service a CAI, then it will be required to have 1 gigabit symmetrical service.
Thank you. And can a written format of the Q&A from today's webinar be provided?
We will be taking note of all of these questions and forming a formally asked question and answer to also be available on the BDO website.
Did the state remove the enforceable commitments in the unserved and underserved list?
Blay, please correct me if I'm wrong, but all locations that are part of an enforceable commitment are labeled with their enforceable commitment and their funding source.
That's correct. Those locations would show up as either served or funded on the map if the enforceable commitment was provided.
Thank you. When will the state be able to share the eligibility files, eligible served, eligible unserved CIIs with the FCC location IDs?
The location IDs that are available for the BEAD challenge process will be available at a minimum 7 days before the start of the BEAD challenge process, so November 26th. The final list of all eligible locations for BEAD funding will be available to the public after we receive approval from NTIA.
Excellent. And earlier you suggested getting a Tier E license. Is that different from a Tier D license?
Yes, a Tier E license is for nonprofits and local governments, whereas Tier D licenses are for internet service providers and those that have to report data information. So if you have a Tier D license, you do not need to apply for a Tier E license.
Oh, here we go. Is fixed wireless considered served?
Fixed wireless is considered a served or a reliable form of internet. It does get into a little bit more specific information based off of this specific type of fixed wireless. More information can be found in our initial proposal, volume one, or with resources provided by NTIA on their website.
Can a public-facing ready.net map be made available before 7 days prior? Like
So
in
within the
Arkansas? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so within the portal itself, there is a map tool for challengers to use to collect information and kind of see how the locations are labeled and everything. That is not going to be available on our webpage for public review. You do have to register in order to see that map, and we will do everything we can to provide data before that 7 days. But we are waiting to see if version 5 of the fabric and availability data will be available to us before the start of the BEAD challenge process.
Is DSL considered served regardless of being 100/20?
DSL is considered a reliable form of technology. It is considered served if the location receives 100/20 megabits per second. And again, for more information, we have information in our initial proposal, volume one, and on the NTIA website.
And then we have another question. What is considered eligible or not eligible for BEAD funding?
All unserved and underserved locations are eligible for BEAD funding. There is more information and specifics about served locations and how that comes into play, but that is outlined in our initial proposal, volume two, as well as NTIA's initial proposal, volume one and two guidance available on their website.
Excellent. And what is the interface for resident corrections?
That is also a ready.net tool.
For challenge types, will there be separate categories to submit challenges for existing and planned service?
Yes, there will be.
Are there guidelines available now on who would be eligible as a subgrantee after the challenge process has concluded? Generally speaking, is the subgrantee process open to small business concerns? Would SBCs need to be registered within Texas?
Specific information about the subgrantee selection process is outlined in our initial proposal, volume two, which is pending approval from NTIA. We do have a draft available upon request to our broadband at cpa.texas.gov email. But the subgrantee selection process is open to all internet service providers looking to provide service in the state of Texas.
Thank you, Erin. This is a repeated question, but I guess for people that have joined late, does the state allow bulk uploads of all location IDs, including CAIs? Is there a file size or format limitation?
Yes, the state does allow bulk uploads for all location IDs, including CAIs. There is a file size limit and the file format limitation as well, but that is provided on the website, which you will be able to see once you register for an account and have been granted access to the account.
Thanks, Erin. So is pre-registration required even if we do not participate in the challenge process and just want to apply for BEAD funding as a new ISP?
Pre-registration is not required in order to participate in the subgrantee selection process. It is just encouraged as a way to better understand the layout and the state of broadband within the state of Texas.
Thank you. And would government funded Wi Fi hotspots that came through COVID funds that have speeds of 25/3 be considered as served communities?
Not for the BEAD program because they are under the required 100/20 megabits per second.
Is there specific data required to populate templates download from the portal in addition to location IDs?
I will send that one over to Clay.
Uh, Short answer is yes. It will depend on the challenge type. If a template is required, the template will be available for download within the portal, and it should pre-populate with the location ID selected. If not, then it's just the location ID CSV.
Excellent. And does the state have an idea of when the BEAD RFP will be released?
So the Broadband Development Office finalized its RFP to sign on our vendor in August of this year. If you're thinking of the notice of funding availability, that is dependent on approval of the initial proposal volume 2, but we are hoping to have that out sometime in spring of 2025.
Is there a requirement to group locations with corresponding evidence for different tech codes?
So, yeah, Clay, I'll let you take that one.
Sounds good. So the portal is limited to basically a challenge within a technology code. So if you had multi technologies, that would need to be multiple challenges.
Thank you, Clay. Just a note that November 26th to December 3rd includes Thanksgiving. Perhaps if V5 data is released November 14th to 22nd, similar to last year, has BDO considered a pause to allow review of the new data, the new June 30th V5 data?
The BDO is moving forward with December 3rd as the start date for the B challenge process. We are monitoring when version 5 will come out and make a decision based on when that data is released and what would be best for the office and for the state.
Thank you. Is specific data, oh, we already answered that one. Can you please confirm that CAIs can be bulk uploaded?
The AIs can be bulk uploaded as long as they are all part of the same challenge type.
And thank you, Erin. So challenge types, we need to understand from the state how to submit the different challenge types in the portal. For example, existing versus planned service challenges. In Vermont, we had to submit existing service challenges under the planned service category, as they did not offering an existing service option.
We will be providing another webinar event to provide a demonstration of how to submit specific challenges.
Thank you. For the resident input tool, can you repeat the entities that would have access to review those and submit on their behalf?
Yes, eligible challengers that will be able to submit a resident input comment submission would be local governments and nonprofit organizations.
Thank you, Erin. A little pause. I don't see any new questions. We'll give it a second though. Okay, oh, every time I start to talk, it pops up. Maybe that's the trick. When do you plan the next webinar?
The next webinar will be in 2 weeks on November 13th. The full list of dates for all of our webinars is available on the BDO website.
Oh, and just as a heads up, the full registration links will be available on our website starting at 2:30 today.
Any other questions?
Not seeing anything, Erin.
Going once, going twice. Sold. Thank you all so very much for coming to our first of 4 webinar series. We look forward to sharing more information with you all in the future. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out as time goes on. Thank you all so much.